Welcome to Community Cop. My name is Julian Harper. Today is again another day that we have an opportunity to have open dialogue with our studio audience. Remember, in about 30 minutes, it'll be a live call-in show, and we'll be able to discuss the topics that we discuss and some of the topics that you want to discuss. Again, my name is Julian Harper, co-founder member of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. And let me introduce my co-host. First of all, we got Big Mike.
Namaste.
And we have the great attorney at war, Alt Maddox.
Hotep.
And Noel Lita, unfortunately, will not be here today. He's on assignment, but we look forward to having him back next week. Our first topic of discussion, as usual, we'll have to talk about one of our great leaders, or excuse me, one of the great pillars or members of our community who's done so much or tried to do so much for our community. Mumia Jamal. Tomorrow's his birthday.
Well, no doubt, when we had to always remember Mumia Abu Jamal, one of those great journalists that was part of the Black nationalist movement. Mumia Abu Jamal, as the story goes, was riding, I think, with his brother in the car. It seemed to be a normal car stopped by a police officer. Shootout ensued, and Mumia was wounded, as well as his brother, and he was subsequently charged with the murder of that police officer who was killed, and the evidence did not lead back to Mumia, even though Mumia was shot on the scene. I think his brother was driving a car, and this was during the height of the counterintelligence program, so obviously Black nationalists were on the radar, and he was one of the real conscious journalists, and he also was a developing radio personality at that time, well known in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by the way. And the former governor, who was the mayor at the time, what's his name, Alton? He played a role in it. He's always on MSNBC. He played a role, as well as other people and the judges. Like I said, the counterintelligence program was in full effect. So he's been in jail now for around 30 years.
34.
34 years?
Nearly 34 years.
Okay, almost 34 years, right, because it was 81, so yeah. So we're talking about at least 33 years. So it's high time, obviously, even if he had been guilty, this man should be let go, but at least under the circumstances, he should obviously get another trial, because that trial was just littered with inequality. He was set up. It was not a fair trial. He did not have the constitutional rights were not exercised with having his peers there on the jury. I think it was Judge Sabo. And the governor, I forgot his name, but who was the mayor at the time, but they all played a role in it. This was, you got to remember that the Philadelphia Police Department came out of the Rizzo machine. They were still around, as well as the counterintelligence program in effect. So it was no way in the world that he was going to get a fair trial as a member of the Black Panther Party.
Yeah, certainly we got a chance to directly become involved with the defense of Mumia Abu Jamal in 1995, and it was at that time, which was roughly about 14 years after he had, or about 13 years after he had been convicted, that because of a motion for a new trial, and there was an extensive hearing, and it was also before Judge Albert Sabo. And one of the concerns about Judge Sabo is that he's also associated with the Fraternal Order of Police. And so you had the police groups who were pressuring everybody to yield this conviction. The real concern about Mumia Jamal is that there was really no direct evidence of guilt at all.
Right.
And there was circumstantial evidence, but it was questionable because it was contradictory. And so in itself, and as a matter of law, the record does not support proof beyond a reasonable doubt, because it's just not there. You can just read the record and know that. And despite that, Sabo presided over the trial, and the jury convicted him. And then in 1995, when we had this hearing, it was a crucial hearing because at that particular time, he was to be executed on August 17th, 1995.
Marcus Garvey's
which is
birthday.
actually Marcus Garvey's
Right.
birthday. And so, the whole summer, I mean, we were there every day. And I really have to give kudos to all the members of the United African Movement because we actually took buses down every day. And it turned out to be that Sabo, who had before had put more black men on death row than anyone else
Right.
in history, turned around and became and had to reverse this judgment of conviction, at least to the extent that he had to stay the execution for him to be subject to capital punishment.
And when you talk about stories such as this, and when you talk about how it affects our community, our young men have been falsely arrested, falsely accused, and falsely charged on numerous occasions. And when you have someone who stands up and fights a system like that, with that much vigor, with that much strength, we have to really look at that person and see what they're contributing to our society, showing that there is hope to some degree to deal with an injustice system that's failing our community. And we have to collectively pay attention to what goes on in a system that's failing us and see how we can protect our youth and the members of our community. Also, the next topic we're going to talk about is going to be the bombing in Boston and the manhunt and the capture afterwards. That's been in the media for since the incident occurred. If you watched it, I think that so many people have so many different views on how the response was, what the media is reporting. There's been a report that these two men are from, I guess, a country or an area near Russia, but the fact is that they're Muslims. And now that it's been said that they're Muslims, exactly, I'm sorry, Chechnya. And as they talk about the fact that they are Muslims, now it appears that there may be some kind of backlash, or there's possible there may be some backlash towards Muslims because of their religion, as opposed to the people who are involved in this particular bombing. Michael, from the information that you're receiving from the media, how do you assess what the media is putting forth, and what do you hear from people that you may have spoken to, how they feel about Muslims as far as this particular case goes?
Well, I think that if one just took a little survey and in a real sense just studied a little history and said in the last 10, 20, 50, 100 years in the past century, if you want to look at religions and do that breakdown, what religion has killed more people than anybody else? It would be no question. It would be Christianity. Would be far ahead of the pack. It would quadruple anybody. Actually, probably 100 times more. So, and if you look at the incidents here in America with respect to who has levied the toll, it would still be Christians, because since the last century, you look at 100 years of lynchings or Without Sanctuary. Thanks a lot, Vernon Wells, for pulling me up my coat to the book Without Sanctuary, so you could just see black men hung at nauseum. So when all this, and this was done by the hands of so-called Christians, and obviously the Reconstruction period, which was the most brutal, was done by Christians, and obviously the slave trade, if you want to go through several centuries, then even the slave so-called trade. So in that respect, my mindset is not wired to believe that Muslims are necessary enemies, even though Arabs have been heavy-handed with Africans. There's no doubt about it. But in terms of these things, I'm not spooked if I see a Muslim, whether he's Arab or African American, on the streets anywhere, as opposed to the media. They say all for one, but that's temporary at best, because they will never embrace blacks. In the 9/11, maybe for a day or two, they wasn't looking sideways at blacks. But in no time, everything returned to true form, and certainly we'll always be on their radar as it currently exists as the bad people.
Oh, you know, when we look at this, and as the law enforcement community attempts to find out what caused these two men to act in this manner, I think one of the reports was that they started following a faith that pointed them in this direction. That's what's being reported. I don't know if anyone is looking at what in their minds had directed them to have so much hate for this country as they went to school in this country, as one of them was for the majority of his life raised in this country. Alton, what do you think?
Well, you know, the funny thing about this is that you hear the statement that the revolution will not be televised. And certainly if the revolution is not going to be televised, this particular case indicated that the arrest of so-called enemy combatants in some circles will be televised. And given that, I was glued to the tube for several days last week because I really like to see how the mechanics of these things work out. And my conclusion is that as from the perspective of a defense attorney, my conclusions are that I cannot discount that this is not an issue of entrapment. And I think that's what's somewhat frightening here, because if you talk about things like these young men not necessarily being predisposed to commit crimes, if you talk about the whole element of the possibility that when they went to some foreign land for 6 months, there was a possibility that they may have also been hosted by state agents, whether either here or in Russia, acting in concert with both law enforcement networks. And when you talk about the criminal acts, you know, that were committed, I would be very concerned right now of raising the issue of entrapment, because I haven't seen anything that would discount that particular defense in this particular case. And when you go back and look at the Oklahoma City bombing, and you look at the motivations for that bombing, and you compare it with the motivations possibly of this bombing, where you have pending legislation on tap, and where you have a new technology that needs to be approved by the public as a means of fighting criminal activities and fighting weapons of mass destruction, I would have to really say that that the United States itself may not have acquitted themselves as well as a lot of people hope that they would have, and that they may be looking at the larger good in their perspective, and that is creating a whole new society and using issues like the Boston Marathon bombing in order to do so. And when you particularly look at the fact that Boston does not use a lot of surveillance equipment, unlike New York, so you don't have a lot of street lights and street corners under surveillance. It just so happened that at this particular location, from what I understand, there's a Lord and Taylor's department store here, and they have a lot of cameras, and that sort of aided the law enforcement community. But then on the other hand, the other question that is really concerning about Boston is that just right across the river, Charles River, that is, you have Cambridge, in which they are absolutely opposed to the notion of using surveillance cameras and things like that. So you have this large resistance, and it's a very serious argument to be made that a motivation for why this MIT security guard, you know, ended up dying when it doesn't seem to be related to the pattern that was going on even with the Boston Marathon shooting. You got some serious questions. I think that in this case right now, there are more questions that are unanswered than have been answered.
Mike, there's been a lot of talk about homegrown terrorists in this country. What would have someone who or cause someone who's lived in this country their entire life to have such an opposition to government where they would cause terror within their own community or within their own country? We'll discuss that first because I have something else that I want to ask you as well. What do you think about this new, and it's not even really new, but I mean, relatively speaking, of homegrown terrorists?
Well, I agree with you that it's not new.
Right.
Because the oldest terrorist organization that anyone can come to mind with is the Ku Klux Klan, which is homegrown, grown in America, supported in America, financed in America, condoned in America by leadership. So that's the oldest homegrown terrorist organization. Now, and they're incorporated too, by the way. Now, I would say that there's no evidence to show that any outside forces influenced them as of yet. They have not said it. Now, we don't know what influenced 26, 27-year-old as well as a 19-year-old to do anything. It's hard to determine. And my understanding is that they both were American citizens. So, in one, 19, if you had 11 years, you came here at 8 years old for all intents and purposes. This is all you know. Right. America in a true sense. Now, with respect to interdiction of terrorists, I'm very much concerned, as Alton Maddox pointed out, this thing with cameras and monitoring, because I will look at two situations. One, Christopher Dorner. When the manhunt occurred with Christopher Dorner, you seen in excess of 10,000 police officers go after Christopher Dorner, and it was rather apparent their intentions were to kill this man. They didn't want to talk to him. They didn't want to hear nothing. Obviously, they didn't want ongoing investigations as to his report with what happened as a police officer. They wanted him dead, and that's what they accomplished. And they killed him, and the Justice Department, who could have gotten involved in it, saw it from a distance and saw them kill that man and has not raised questions as to were there possibilities to spare his life and were there violations of police codes. Now, the main crux of what I'm looking at is the use of cameras and how Commissioner Kelly is talking about introducing more cameras into New York. How can you introduce more cameras into New York with respect to interdiction of crime, terrorism, when you got rid of cameras in the Omar Edwards case? Now, Noel always points out, why did all the cameras come up blank there on 125th Street and 2nd Avenue when police officer Omar Edwards was killed by white police officers? The fact of the matter is NYPD did not utilize cameras. It got rid of cameras. The Tyru, the ones on the corner, the grocery store, the ones in the projects, got rid of all the cameras and came up blank to concoct the story. So the cameras are good. Monitoring electrical equipment is good when it wants to support, when it goes in line with what your agenda is. But when it goes against the agenda, then you want to dispense with electrical equipment. So the fact of the matter is, in the Omar Edwards case, where 100 blacks in law enforcement maintain that Omar Edwards was killed by fellow police, or not only killed, he was murdered, and then it was a cover-up by the police department, by the district attorney's office. The district attorney didn't emphasize cameras. Look in this case in Boston, how they pleaded to the public. Everybody came, everybody has video on their cell phones. They came up with tens of thousands, and had the manpower and put in the collective effort between the Joint Terrorist Task Force. They had FBI, they had NSA, they had Boston Police Department, they had Cambridge Police Department, Watertown Police Department, they had the Massachusetts State Police, they had everybody on the FBI, everybody, all had people looking at the different vantage points, the cameras to a point where they was able to isolate those two young men and the backpacks and determine that these were the guys that dropped off those two bombs that eventually detonated. So they use cameras when it's in their best interest, and the NYP in particular did not use the cameras. They had the capacity and took the camera from the grocery store right there on the corner of 125th Street and 2nd Avenue in the murder, the covered up murder of Omar Edwards, and got rid of the evidence.
Alton, you know, if you listen to some of the news reports when people are being interviewed, if you listen to people that you speak to in the community or you may speak to, there seems to be a fear over the community, where the community is willing to relinquish its civil rights, its rights to privacy, based on these incidents that are occurring and the reports that are going on. We're being bombarded with terrorism and fear and rights being restricted at the airport, even within your own community. What do you think this is, and how it's going to affect the overwhelming community?
You know, you're actually making an argument for the NRA or the National Rifle Association, because that's essentially what their point is that as you take away guns from people, that you're going to promote government tyranny. And that was a argument that this, quote, founding fathers, close quote, made when they wrote the Second Amendment, and especially now in light of a standing army that we are facing right here, particularly in New York City. I mean, there's no greater standing army in the world than the one that we have right here in this city. And this is all the more reason.
Which is?
Huh?
Which is?
The New York Police Department.
Oh, right.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, the focus there should definitely be in November. All eyes should be on City Hall and who controls it. Because, you know, they're talking about taking this city to a whole different kind of technology. And as Michael was just pointing out, in some ways, Malcolm, the chicken coming home to roost, may have some validity, because as he points out, it started with terrorism here against us. And that's very interesting that a lot of people can go on the internet and find out about terrorist apparatus and can use that and are using it right here in this country. So it was interesting that when terrorism was against us, nobody was speaking out against it. Now, you know, it's against other people using it to their advantage, and now everybody's speaking out. And you know, it goes to show that when you don't nip this in the bud, that it will come back to bite you. And I think that what happened in New York is a clear example that it will come back to bite us.
Okay. Speaking about how the media is portraying these cases and these incidents and fear, there seems to be, and I think we've discussed this in the past, a removal, for lack of a better term, of black media in our community. We used to have shows that would discuss issues that affect the black community on television. We had them via radio. We had stronger black newspapers. And it seems as if these things are being stripped away. They're diminishing. They're being removed from our reach. I'll start with you, Alton. What do you think about this removal or this depletion of black media?
Well, I think if you look at the U.S. Constitution, I like to look at it because the Constitution more than just a set of written rules that may have been written by white supremacists and the like. There's some real reality in many of the things that are actually in those documents. And as I was told when I was in law school, there's a reason why there's a First Amendment. And the reason is that it provides the greatest protection against government tyranny, and there's a reason why there's a Second Amendment, because it provides the backup for the First Amendment. And one of my big beefs today, and I think that people listen to this every day on television and radio and don't understand the danger that we're running into, censorship is a real problem. And I wish that other people would echo this other than myself. You know, I just wrote a letter to the FCC yesterday, and sent a copy of it to the President of the United States, the governors of Virginia and New York, as well as the Attorney General of the United States, along with other media outlets. And the problem that we're having here, and the one we must realize is that people have a right to know. And when they don't have that right to know, their rights are going to automatically become undermined. And so whether you understand this concept or not, you have to rise up and get active, because this is systematic and it's happening for a purpose, and it's not a good purpose, and it's not a good reason.
Michael, you know, just the other day I ran into a 21-year-old young man who wanted to discuss what was going on in Boston with me. You wanted to have that discussion with me, rather. And one of the things he just happened to say to me while we were having this discussion, and because his question was, do you think this is a inside job? So I said to him, well, first of all, you got to define what you mean by inside job. So as the conversation went on, one of the things he decided to ask me about, or say to me, he says, listen, I didn't even know that the United States used unmanned drones. And it boggled my mind that a young man that was in college, 21 years of age, was so far removed from what's going on in our community. When I mean collective community. When we talk about the removal of black media from our community, I think that also leads to the dumbing down and misinformation is disseminated to us and our youth. And it was very troubling to me that this young man was so unaware of a lot of things that were going on in our community. And it's part of the reason I think is he's not exposed to it and he's not being fed that information. Your position on the loss of the feeding of our children relative to things that affect our community and things that happen globally.
Well, it's no doubt about it when you consider that certain instruments and accoutrements that can be removed that would leave a community bereft. Whites understand, have employed things like a Southern strategy, so they know how to get a candidate in and how to literally disenfranchise the black community overall. They understand Harvard studies on the shopping habits and how to take advantage economically of the black community. Well, with respect to the media, there was a time where we had Black News, Like It Is, and Tony Brown's Journal, and there's things, so many things like that. We were replete, and we had several radio stations where we had serious black talk going on. This thing we should have known wasn't going to last forever. Once it showed itself to be a drumbeat, when you were able to get thousands of people at one location, and the drumbeat was the radio or television, then they knew that there was going to be a time where they were going to remove it systematically. Now, Nixon employed a strategy, President Nixon, where he understood that to ignore black folks, you still have to raise up Negroes and raise up a condition where you put them up front, whether it's Magic Johnson, whether it's Oprah Winfrey, whatever, and show them to be successful. And everybody else, if you're not where Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan is, guys like that, or Spike Lee, or whoever, then it's your fault. Because look at them, they're all millionaires, striving to be, in Oprah's case, billionaire. So it's on you. If you don't make it, it's on you. So the fact is, there's not much freedom, to express a narrative with respect to who we are and what our conditions are, and more importantly, what we need to do. So we know, since we've had any level of freedom in this country, we've utilized the tools that were at our disposal. Going back as far back as I think 1827 with Freedom's Journal, where they said, too long has others spoken for us. So it's that time for us to speak for ourselves. So we've always had that. You don't see the black press the way we once had it. You don't see the black banks the way we had it. You don't see the black insurance companies. And none of these things are accidental. So the few that we had, and then you apply censorship, as Attorney Ward pointed out, when you apply censorship and only certain blacks can speak because they're saying certain things, and the so-called safe ones, as Nixon brought out, to elevate them, then those that you see on TV, those that are on radio all day long ad nauseum, obviously they're not working in our interest because they will go against what Nixon and all of them taught, that you can't put somebody on that's going to dismantle white supremacy. You utilize those that will undergird white supremacy.
Well, you know, Mike, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I think if anybody hears with a true ear, they'll understand what you're talking about is black nationalism. You know, people have a tendency to be or to shy away from the words black nationalism, and I think part of it is because they really don't understand what it is. Black nationalism only means that you control the everything that occurs in your community. You know, your bank should be black, your schools should be black or controlled by blacks, the education system, the politics, all these things, as Malcolm spoke about, should be controlled by blacks. Because no matter where you live, and Noel and I had a conversation today, and as Malcolm said, that even if you move out of a black community and move into a white community, at some point all the whites are going to move out and you're going to be there alone. So it's still going to be a black community.
Battle of the bullet. That's
Battle of the bullet, exactly. And so it's important that we understand that no matter where you live, and there's nothing wrong with this, and you can't even think that there's anything wrong with this, that you have to develop your own community. So since the community that you live in is going to be a black community, you should have a community that's thinking as a black person with a black mind and a black conscience to develop black businesses, politics, and education, and anything else that affects your community.
Well, I agree with everything you said about black nationalism, and I think that Michael is saying the same thing. But we have a bigger problem here, and that's the other thing that Michael raised, and that is that we're only hearing one voice now, and not the voice of black nationalism.
Right.
I mean, we only listen to the voices of accommodationism. That's all that's on television and radio now. And that's the real problem, especially here in New York City. I mean, if you look at people who are on radio every day, they are accommodationists. That's not our real viewpoint, and it's not in our best interest to accommodate to white supremacy.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we need to talk about as well, and I know we have some phone callers on the line, so we're going to get to them as well. You know, there's a real issue with politics in in our community, state politics, which also is going to lead to city politics, local politics as well. There's been a rash of corruption going on in state politics. There was a poll or a survey conducted where 81% of the state, or the people of the state, or reside in the state, or which means the people that were questioned or asked, they believe that 81% of the community believes that there's going to be more follow-up arrests and more corruption uncovered in state politics. I personally believe that the corruption is there. It's what they choose to disclose and uncover. Mike?
Well, I think that certainly, and I concur with what you said, corruption has always been around. It's just when they choose to utilize it. I mean, in plain sight, City Council Speaker Christine Quinn had a slush fund. Mayor Michael Bloomberg had a slush fund. And that was right there in plain sight. Michael Bloomberg paid off City Council people to get a third term in plain sight. So it's just what you choose to look at or what you choose not to look at. But the fact of the matter is corruption is always there. So when you see certain names pointed out, you almost want to ask, what did they do? Whose toes did they step on for them to get arrested?
Okay. Well, you know, I look at it also in the same way both of you do, but I look at particularly with one particular point in mind. Anytime that you have a system of black selected officials, there is an initiation proceeding that precedes their being selected by these white supremacists. And it goes back, and both of you know this being in law enforcement, that you're not going to become a member of organized crime unless you demonstrate that you're dirty. Because that's the only thing, that's the cement, that's the glue to keep the bricks together. You know, and same thing with a black selected official. You can't be representing us without demonstrating to whites that you're dirty. There's no other way they can control you. You can't be squeaky clean. And so it's inevitable that every black selected official, and this is my point, every black selected official in New York City is dirty. You have to be dirty. Inevitably, that's the legal definition. That's the only glue that holds you together. That's the only thing that other people can use as a whip to keep you in place. And as both of you just said, it's just where the DA wants to look. I mean, and what motivation that the DA may have at any particular moment to go after somebody. But the reality of it is, everybody that represents us in this city is filthy.
Wow. I know we have a lot of callers on the line, so we'll get to our first caller. First caller, where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Hello.
How you doing? Where you calling from,
Yeah,
caller?
good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm calling from Harlem. How are you doing today?
All right, how are you?
I'm fine. I just wanted to make just a couple of quick points. You mentioned Frank Rizzo earlier, and he would summarize, our life in this country. You can get the truth from the end of a nightstick, and you can go on and fill in and whatnot. So this is what this man was about. These men who, let loose this bomb last week in Boston, they have basically said why they have done it, the one surviving one. And it seems like that this government doesn't want to listen to that. There has to be something more underlying. There has to be some other element in this. They basically said this nation's invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq was the reason why they, did this bombing. And the last point I wanted to make, before people start to gasp and everything about what I'm about to say, I heard Tony Brown say this in around about late 80s during the Reagan administration. The worst thing that probably happened to us was the end of segregation. Basically, in so many words, basically he was saying that we were able to do a lot better depending on each other instead of co-opting into this, quote-unquote government. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Well, I don't think too many people are going to gag with you saying that. I'm sure that a lot of people will concur with you. But thank you for your call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Yes, this is George, Brother George. Good evening.
Good evening, brother. Where you calling from? Manhattan?
Altonatics. This is Manhattan, yes. Harlem.
All right.
I'd like to make a little comment. I always like to listen to positive because my motto is if it's negative, I've heard it. If it's positive, I'll listen. I like to say that we should not be guilty of life's three greatest sins. Number one sin, you don't lie to children. Number two, you don't commit murder. And number three, you don't commit suicide. And the first one is so important because if we don't lie to our children, they won't grow up to be liars. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Hi, my name is Carol, and I'm calling from Washington Heights.
Okay, peace, Queen. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask the attorney a question.
Go ahead.
It's about privacy and the cameras. I don't have a problem with the cameras. I think they're great. But I don't understand, how can you have privacy in the street if it's a public place?
That's your question? Okay, thank you. Oh,
Well, I think that question may answer with the U.S. Constitution itself, because when you're on the street, if there's no probable cause, you have no right to search a person and seize their property. That's a form of privacy, and it's prohibited unless there's probable cause. So this Constitution does not provide for unlimited invasions of privacy. There are many constraints that are placed on it, and that's what we're talking about here. Now, we're not talking about our own personal views. We're talking about what this U.S. Constitution provides and the laws that we have to be restricted to. You may have your own point of view as to what privacy means. I may have my own point of view as to what privacy means. But it's how the Constitution itself is interpreted that is significant. And in that sense, there's no such thing as unbridled right to invade one's privacy.
And just consider, since that while I understand what you're saying and your sentiments probably are widespread, however, the first caller mentioned Frank Rizzo. The Rizzo regime was legendary for its heavy-handedness and its corruption with respect to how it treated blacks in Philadelphia. Frank Rizzo, when you compare him to a Bull Connor was a lightweight compared to Frank Rizzo, as devious as he was. So when you think of the brutality of the LAPD, Chicago PD, it's lightweight in comparison to Philly's PD. So I would just say that if you give certain police departments, like New York City here, 35,000 strong, if you give the NYPD a certain latitude, you might think that it's something innocent with the camera, but it will end up with coming into your house, invasions. As we see right now, a lot of the young black men up against the wall, and they're being carted off to jail for whatever the reasons are. Sometimes no reason at all. For the most part, 94% of the times, there's no reason at all. So just watch giving certain people a certain amount of latitude, because it can be dangerous.
We have a lot of callers on the line. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment? Kind of keep it. Please try to keep it quick. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Good evening, gentlemen. This is Jim calling from Harlem.
Okay, go ahead, Jim. Quick question or comment?
Yeah, I have a comment about Rizzo, but I want to also give a quick shout out to my South Harlem Griffith crew, Andy, Opie, Barnes.
Next caller. Next caller. Welcome to Community.
Next caller.
Next caller, please. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Good evening, gentlemen. This is Robert Clippers. I'm calling from the Bronx.
Okay.
And I have to say, you there?
Go ahead. Quick question or comment?
I have to say that in order for the media to be right and just, we need African Americans to be more involved and take control of it. And with that in mind, I want to just say to my Wandanch posse.
Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Yeah, like I was saying, Herman Munster,
Hold on.
Next caller.
Next caller.
Hello?
Yeah, next caller. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. My name is Marty. I'm calling from Queens.
Go ahead. Quick.
And I just want to commend you on this segment of the show. And the only thing that I like to say is that, to reiterate from earlier, from the first caller, is that people need to get more into the learning about history. And what you said more is about blacks taking control of their community, getting more involved. And I find that to be frustrating these days with everything thrown at us to keep us distracted from what's more important to us. Black Wall Street is a great book that I think most of our people need to read when they talk about how a people survive, our people down in Oklahoma, and we were able to sustain even in the worst time of a recession. And W. Du Bois wrote this book based on what he had captured that blacks were able to do with the little funding and money that they had, their own schools, their own drugstores, their own hospitals, and their own homes and they didn't depend on our white counterparts to take part in that. And you know, it just becomes frustrating, and I think we need more shows like yours to bring to the forefront. You're right. Tony Brown and all of them guys, they have taken away from us and taken out of our view. And it's hard for us as black men to reach to our younger black men to teach them about these things when there's more out here that the world is trying to create an illusion that this is what they should be going after when they're running after nothing but smoke in the air.
Okay.
If you understand what I mean.
Yes, sir.
I'm just so moved by what you're doing right now. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I think what you're doing, you guys are doing are great. I think you guys ought to reach out to Charlton and these guys and bring this back home to where the heart is, and that's in our people.
Okay, brother, thank you. We appreciate your call. Oh, you had something that you wanted to say earlier before we go to our next callers? Or?
Well, actually, I have a lot of things to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I think the one thing I do want to bring out right now, just to piggyback on the last call, which wasn't what I was going to say earlier, is the fact that I think that people have to recognize in this city right now, and I don't say this because I'm sitting here, that this is one of the true public affairs programs that we have in the city, and it only can be reached by internet or public access channels. So that demonstrates the fact that all of the other kinds of means of access to the airwaves that we should have a right to that are now being denied to us And the second point I want to make, and I think the audience is beginning to realize this, is that when this program and the brothers that and sisters that support it come to mind, they're doing this really out of the bottom of their hearts, and not because they're making a paycheck. And I think that's something that we need to understand, that when we watch this program, that we are looking at people here who are giving up their time, not only on camera, but also their time to actually research many of the issues that should be discussed on camera in order to give our community the right to know.
Okay, all right. We'll go back to our phone calls. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Wassalamu salam. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You calling from Brooklyn, you said?
This is Brother Abdul Malik. I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Okay.
What?
Go ahead, brother.
Next caller. Next caller.
All right, we have another call on the air?
Get it? Please, yes. Calling from the Rockaway.
Okay, quick question or comment?
Okay, well, good evening, good afternoon to your beautiful, handsome, strong brothers and Alton Matters that love you. You say something that was unique, Alton Matters, about black politicians when their hands are dirty. And I look at most of us in this United States of this America, because even if you're a teacher, you cannot teach black history about slavery. If you're a cop, I don't care what, we're working for them. We're here to promote and push their agenda and deny our own. And so when we work for them, we hinder ourselves to help ourselves. And also with the two bombers, I don't see them doing it. I believe there's something more sinister behind it than meets the eye. Well,
Okay, all right. Thank you for that call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Hello, Hotep, brother.
Hotep.
Yes, I want to just put this out there, and Brother Harper, as always, you're always on point. But with these two suspects who allegedly committed this act of terrorism, if I'm correct, why is it that we don't see footage of them actually placing the bags down, actually placing the so-called bombs there? We see everything else but that. And number two, if they in fact did it, they're supposedly giving these statements, or like the surviving brother is giving these statements about why they did this. How is it that he could do this? If you get shot, you're going to be heavily sedated. Supposedly he got shot in the throat. He wouldn't be able to talk, period. And
He's not talking, he's writing.
So I'm just curious. It just seems a little weird to me what's really going on. Maybe you can comment on that. Okay. And also, he's not going to be read his Miranda rights. So maybe Alton Maddox can speak to how, once again, the Constitution is being overstepped. And it just seems like a very slippery slope to me. Peace, brothers.
Right. As Mike stated, it was reported that he was shot in the throat, and it was reported that he was writing some of the notes from the questions that were being asked to him by the law enforcement community. As far as him being being read as Miranda, this is something they were talking about, an emergency exception. Apparently, they went away from
Public
it.
safety exception.
Yeah.
Right.
Apparently, they went away from it, and but I'll let Alton discuss that if he chooses to. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that we're watching in this country, and we're watching because, as people have been saying, not only is it important for us to know our own history, but it's also important for us to know everybody's history. And the reality of it is that there was no public safety exception in 1787 and beyond when this Constitution and the later amendments were drafted. Nobody thought about that. There was no stop and frisk when this Constitution was written. So this whole notion of public safety exception, this whole notion of stop and frisk are absolutely bogus. And it represents judicial activism. The same judicial activism that the Republicans are condemning people for, they're actually engaging in themselves by creating these exceptions to the Constitution.
Do you have something, Mike?
No.
Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
I agree with this is Bill Green from Harlem. I agree with the gentleman that the stop and frisk is bogus. The Miranda is only used when it's to their convenience. And getting back to Frank Rizzo, what people don't realize is that he was involved as well with the Brady crew, Marsha, Jan, Cindy, Peter, Bob, and Greg.
Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
From Manhattan.
From Manhattan? Go ahead. Quick question or comment?
I'm calling I'm calling from Manhattan.
Okay, quick question
Yes,
or comment.
I'm trying to find out what happened to Father Lucas today. You didn't mention why he's not there.
Oh, well, Father Lucas is on assignment as well. I did neglect to say that he's on assignment.
He'll be back next week.
I got the message a little late that he wouldn't be here today. But, yeah, he'll be here next week. Was that your question? Okay. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, quick question or comment?
Hello?
Yes, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, quick question or comment?
Hi, how are you, gentlemen?
We're well, how are you?
And I'd just like to say that I'm 48 years old, and I'm still suffering from slavery.
Next caller.
Okay. Next caller?
Hello?
Yeah, next caller. You on the air? Quick question or comment?
Yeah, this is Clarence from Brooklyn. How you doing?
All right, how are you? Quick question or comment?
Okay, I want to find out when will our people begin to understand that this governor named Andrew Cuomo got away with pulling an apartheid coup, prevented the first black man from becoming Speaker of the State Senate, and then he looked the other way along with Attorney General Snyderman to let Tawana Brawley become clipped from a paycheck $600 a month when there was no legal process, no record in Justice County that she was legally served with the papers to be garnished, and out of that, no one in the nation media and the black media is saying a mumbling word. And thanks be to God, we have a chairman, Attorney Alton Maddox, and community cop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, brother, for your call. Well, I'll let Alton Maddox respond to that.
Well, I think that one of the things that represents Tawana Brawley now, and I give this out over the airways because I think the people who are having doubts about the Brawley case should go up to Poughkeepsie, New York, Dutchess County Courthouse, Clerk's Office, and look under the case of Pagonis versus Maddox et al., which also includes Sharpton, Mason, and Brawley, and look at the index number 4595 or the year 88, and actually look at that file, and you will find no affidavit of service that was ever served on Tawana Brawley. You will find no appointment of a guardian ad litem, which is necessary to initiate a civil action against a minor in the file. You will find no inquest in the file indicating that there was a default judgment. And you got to ask yourself, why are we sitting idly by and letting this happen? Because Tawana Brawley today has been reduced to an indentured servant in violation of the 13th Amendment. And we're going to Virginia in July at great expense to deal with a bogus issue that should be stopped, and it's not stopped only because of the fact that New York seems to have a real serious problem of engaging in might makes it right. And I would just simply say in conclusion that tomorrow night we have a very serious rally. I'll be there at the Brooklyn Christian Center, 1061 Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, and everybody should be there at 7 p.m. Because we have some real serious questions in this community that take place. And here's a case that's 25 years old now, and this state has belatedly hoped that people who would stand for Tawana had died, and we are taking her back into slavery, and the rest of us will be following very soon.
Very quickly, this situation is a badge of slavery. The same way when Haiti had to free itself from the yoke of slavery from under the French, and after it freed itself, the French government charged it $15 million to be free. Tawana Brawley is being charged the same way by the person that raped and sodomized her, charging her for her freedom, and now she has to pay the person who abused her. That makes no sense.
And it's unprecedented. I mean, we've never seen this anywhere in the United States before. It's sad that it's starting here, and hopefully the people of New York will rise up and fight it, and so it won't be said that some other state and blacks in those states will have to come to our rescue. We need to start this tomorrow, and we need to fight until it comes to an end.
All right. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. We're running out of time, so be kind of quick. Quick question or comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Quick question or comment.
Yes, this is Brother Vincent for Harlem. I'll try to be out there to your UAM forum tomorrow. I would like to say the incident that happened in Boston seems like it's going to be a test run of what they're going to try to do in New York City. It was surprising to me that they shut down the whole area and went searching house to house and never mentioned the fact that they had search warrants for each location they wanted to go in. Also, within the assault that they said that they had to commence on one of the suspects, they showed it in two versions. One was in daylight and the other one was at night. And that gives them great opportunity when they have all the residents to stay indoors to take out political hits among their fellow police officers, among their ranks, to take them out and say it was friendly fire.
All right. Thank you for the call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment? Caller, you there? Go ahead. Quick question or comment? Yes, quick question or comment?
Yes, yeah, I'm the one who got disconnected. Thank you. Yes, I was just calling to say that I think that we're all really victims of slavery in one area or another, and I think basically the other man, I forgot his name, but he addressed it for me. So I think that if we just concentrate on that and realize that we're all victims of some type of slavery mentality, and I think that we can go forward if we just address it, you know, and realize that this is really true. This is not just in your head, this is true.
Thank you.
All right, sister, thank you for your call. All right, we're running out of time. I'm getting a sign from our producers. Closing comments, Mike?
I'll just say that big ups to UAM for defending Tawana Brawley, because it's defending all black women. Let's pray, those who believe in prayer, for Lambe Brath, and it's going to be a function given for Lambe Brath May 11th at 127th Street between 7th and 8th by December 12th, and others for Lambe Brath. So stay tuned, and we'll give you specific details about that in the future. Reinstate automatics.
We need a black political party. Black millionaires are not going to finance it. We're going to have to do this ourselves. We're meeting at the Cotton Club in Harlem on this coming Saturday at 9 p.m. To make sure that our voices are heard, our impact is felt in November in this city. And tomorrow night we'll be at the Brooklyn Christian Center, 1061 Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn at 7 p.m.
All right. And we have to remember that there's a lot of things going on in this city, in this state, and in this country, and everything is political. We have to hold our elected officials accountable. We have to ensure that we put people in office that's going to do the bidding of the people. We have been failed. It appears that we are going to continue to be failed if we continue to still go down the same path politically that we're going now. So this is now the time for change. Reinstate automatics. Dad, I love you. Leader family, you know, we with you. We'll always be with you. Looking forward to have you back, Noel. And you know I got to say it, Little Mo, if you're watching, I know this is what Noel does, so I have to bring it to you. Keep watching Community Cop. We're looking forward to seeing you guys next week. All the staff, we got to thank you, Veronica, Nat, the two Riches, and everyone else that assists us in this program. All right, thanks for watching Community Cop. We'll see you next week.